So far, we've seen that one reason to use passive structures is to avoid specifying who did an action, to avoid specifying the agent. Let's take up now another reason to use passive structures. This one could be even more important. And this is that passives are among the linguistic resources we can use to get the elements within a sentence into an order that's helpful to our listeners or readers. Let's say that somebody has been writing an article, it's about some problem, and now they're going to say this about the problem. A compelling book called California Crack-Up describes this problem more generally. A pair of journalists and nonpartisan think tank scholars, Joe Matthews and Mark Paul, wrote it. Whew, that is hard to follow. And why is that? Where is the problem located? I think the problem is here in this huge long thing at the beginning of the second sentence. There are several things wrong with it. It's long, it's complex, and it's full of stuff that, as a reader, I had no way to anticipate. These names, nonpartisan think tank, I was not expecting any of these things. And I'm having to hold all of that in short-term memory before I get to the verb wrote, which tells me what I'm supposed to do with this information. And it tells me how this relates to the topic that I thought had been established so far. So, hey, look at the structure here. It is a direct object, and this whole monstrosity in red is the subject of the sentence. Now, because there is a direct object, that means that we have an option to create a passive out of this, and that actually would be a good idea here. Let's see how that would look. The first sentence, of course, remains the same. We're going to turn the second sentence into a passive. So take the direct object, it, put it at the beginning. Now that's the subject. It is the subject. Next, we take the verb wrote, turn that into the passive, was written. This is already a well-formed sentence, but we need to get the rest of the detail in here as well. That's kind of the whole point. So the part in red used to be the subject. We're going to put it into a structurally optional prepositional phrase, like so. And in fact, this was what the author wrote in his article, so good job, Michael Lewis. Good job on using that passive to get elements into a helpful order in that sentence. What's good about this is that now the subject, it, is short and simple. You really can't get shorter and simpler than that. And it refers to what was just mentioned in the previous sentence. So as a reader, once I've read the first sentence, I'm in a very good position to understand the pronoun it at the beginning there. I know right away what it points back to. I have to expend very little effort to understand what I'm reading. I've read it, and I know that I'm ready to understand some long and complex stuff that the author is now going to tell me about it. So the passive allows the writer here to get the elements in that sentence into a helpful order.